Hello, we're here with another episode of Around the Interruption. I got a chance to talk to a guy that I've been trying to talk to a very long time, John Calvango. Thank you very much for coming on our show. John, I always refer to you as I know a guy, he's a scout in the minor leagues for the Red Sox. What is your official title? What do you call yourself? What exactly do you do?
I amateur scout the kids. It's not a job. I've been doing it solo for a long time. This off season, I joined a website called Prospects 365.
Okay.
Ray Butler owns it.
Yep.
I joined a real talented team, so I'm excited for the next step.
And were you involved in coaching or playing when you were younger, and then you transitioned to scouting? Or how did you get involved in it?
No, well, I'm a huge baseball nerd.
I think we all are.
In my 20s, I discovered fantasy baseball.
Okay.
And about 15 years ago, the new rage was dynasty fantasy baseball.
Right.
And while I was excited about it, I didn't know anything about the minor leagues.
Okay.
But I took to it and became I became a groupie at minor league ball.
Okay.
John Sickles' site.
Okay.
And eventually started writing for him.
Oh, wow.
And from there, I kept telling the wife, what I want is a continuous scroll of my work. Just go one post to the next post to the next
Right.
post. And that's a blog, dear. kind of like that,
Sure.
So that's kind of how it started, and then it became Notes from the Sally.
Okay.
And yeah.
And now, what is your background as far as what else do you do? Do you have a side gig? Are you an electrician? You're a teacher? What do you do on the side?
Well, I was managed restaurants for 17 years,
Oh, wow.
and now I'm a baker in a regional supermarket chain.
So you get a lot going on.
Just me and my headphones. Bake the breads.
Right. Now, where are you from originally?
Albany, New York.
Okay, all right. Now, was there a team there, a minor league team there when you were a kid that you followed a little bit, or not really? Or
The Albany Colony A's rolled in the early 80s.
okay.
And I used to go with my dad a little bit, and then they became the Albany Colony Yankees.
Right.
And I was still going a little bit. I was happier with the A's because I was a Red Sox fan.
How did that work? How did you become a Red Sox fan being from there?
It's a little tricky. When I was beginning, I was a Met fan, and
Okay.
I was getting the Mets on the radio.
Yep.
And the '75 World Series was the first one I was allowed to stay up for. And really did not like the Cincinnati Reds.
Okay, I could see that.
My Met fandom. So from there, I started rooting both. And when we got cable in 1980, I realized I liked the American League ball way better than the National League ball. So just dropped the Mets.
Yeah, I remember, I've lived here my whole life, and growing up as a Red Sox fan, I went to the Finger Lakes up in upstate New York in '87. And I knew that the World Series was the year before, but I still didn't have a grasp of how big that was. And the Mets were playing somebody, and the person who owned the place we were staying was a Mets fan. I'm like, oh, that's great. Oh, okay, I hope the Mets win. And my mother was just like, she's like, glad your dad's not around. He's still not gotten over the Mets. Don't even talk about it. And I know from a personal standpoint, I've had season tickets to the Red Sox for a while, and we had a lot of guys from Pittsfield play in the minors for the Mets. And they would go to the Red Sox games because their wives were from Pittsfield originally. So they played for the Mets, and then when they retired, they moved back to Massachusetts. So like in a box on the third base side, they'd be like, well, that guy played for the Mets, and this year that guy played. They were guys that weren't like superstars. But if you were a Mets fan, you kind of geek out on it. And there was a couple guys from New York that I knew that were like, oh, do you know who that is? I'm like, I have no idea who that is. But for them, it was a big deal. So.
Sure.
But I've been a huge baseball fan my whole life, so it's a big pleasure to talk to you. But let's get into it now. As far as you cover the what they call the Sally League. Is that how people refer to it as?
Correct. South Atlantic.
And now, what age bracket are those guys, or how does that all work? I know that it's always confusing for us, where we know college players will go to Lowell, and then guys from like South America will go to Lowell. But then if you're drafted out of high school, you'll go to Florida. And it's always confusing on our end where the prospects are going to go.
Sure.
after the draft?
So that's typically in their draft year, the college players go to Lowell, the advanced minor leagues, the advanced rookie ball level.
Right.
And the high school kids go to complex leagues in Florida and Arizona.
Okay.
And the cream of the crop high school, the following season,
Right.
we'll come to Sally or the Midwest League.
Sure.
Almost all the college kids will come to the Sally or Midwest League. A couple of the more advanced or cream of the crop college kids might skip and go straight to A+.
Right.
But most of your first rounders, high schoolers, are coming to South Atlantic League, Sally, or Midwest League. It's the bottom floor of full season leagues. It's a 140 game season.
And for a lot of those guys, that's a huge adjustment because, I mean, going from when we play in the Northeast, we're lucky to play 20 games a year, where when I was in college, we'd go down to Florida, we'd be playing against teams that already played 40 games, like community colleges. And, but I mean, that's a lot of games for kids to play. When you scout when you're looking at the games in the first couple of weeks, is it very apparent who the really good kids are and who the kids are that maybe it was a good write-up, but they're not quite at that level?
Sure.
Yeah.
Which there's no one style of prospect that can make it, but typically you want to see the loud tools and some approach.
Right.
So sometimes you need to see a player 2 or 3 times to really get the approach. You can see the loud tools immediately, but if you follow the kid around, you might you learn about the approach, and sometimes it's apparent right away, but most of the time it takes a few 2, 3, 4 looks before you really get a good sense on a hitter.
I also wonder too, I know in Lowell they always talk about the weather as a big deal. Where Carolina leagues, the weather's probably pretty decent, I imagine, where it's not 30 degrees, at night. I mean, maybe the BC, but I doubt that that's very common at all. But I know that I go to a lot of Cape Cod League games as well. And none of the guys can hit because they never used wooden bats before. And it's like, oh, you hit 250. That's amazing. I go, 250? That's awful. Where all the pitchers usually acquire these stats, but the hitting is really not a big thing. Where in the Carolina League, Sally League, is the offense ahead of the pitching at that level?
Well, the college arms tend to dominate.
Okay.
But the high school arms, you got to have some polish to survive.
Yeah, is it most of the guys at that level it's basically just heat, fastballs, and maybe some breaking balls, or?
Sure, exactly right.
Okay, yeah.
Exactly. If you have a good changeup, no one's going to touch you.
Really? Okay, yeah. Now, is it for somebody like me who watches, like I have the MILB package because I'm a real geek with the sports. I watch any of the minor leagues I can. When I see a guy who gets drafted, I'll want to follow them whoever they are. What do you look for that maybe the average person wouldn't see? Like, what's the most obvious thing you see right away? Like, can you see a guy, like, look at his feet, and you're like, yeah, he's not gonna, the swing's too long, or it's just not gonna work. Is there something that you right away you notice about every guy you look at, like something you look for right away?
Yeah, it's more like the hands.
Okay.
I watch the hands on the batter.
Okay.
I don't know. It's really hard to. Excuse me 1 second. Yeah, the way the ball comes off the bat, and it's the wrists, bat speed. There's, like I said, there's no really one thing I look at, but the kids, if I see a ball come off the bat really well, I sit up and take notice.
Right.
Length of swing, of course, plays a role.
Sure.
So, yeah, and of course, athleticism.
Right. Yeah. Is there certain tools where they'll advance quickly? Like if a guy can hit the ball really far or throws 100 miles an hour, he doesn't need good control, or he doesn't need to be as good as a contact player, or he doesn't have to play as good a defense. Is there certain tools that you put a more of an emphasis on, or is it just kind of you want a well-rounded player?
Well, there's a lot of strong tool players that I
Right.
see at my level.
Yeah.
That are worth noting. But yeah, the more tools, the better.
Mhm.
The more polished, the better.
Right.
You know, you just can't be too picky because you don't know what's going to play at the higher level.
Right.
Sometimes I see, like a 70 raw guy like Reese Hoskins,
Wow.
who, you know, and he's got power for days, and he's patient.
Right.
I don't know. There might not ever be anything else but that. But he's in the big leagues and doing pretty
Sure.
well. So
Yeah. Now, as far on the pitching side, is it velocity is more important than control, or do you like to see some combination of both? Or
well, if I see high 80s, it's hard for me to stay focused
okay.
on the pitcher. If it's got to be it's got to be low, low 90s,
Right.
mid 90s.
Mm-hmm.
It's just not going to play. You got to be so perfect at the major league level to get somebody out throwing 88.
Yeah, I've seen that too. I follow the Sox prospects website quite a bit. It's like a who to look for, who to see, and I'll see certain guys dominate. At the A level and the Double A level, and then the write up will be, well, might not have the velocity because, like you're saying, a lot of these guys at the lower levels they might not need that velocity. But at what level would you say is a Double A basically is the make or break for a lot of the guys you see?
Yeah, double A separates the pretender from the contender. I'd say.
Right. I noticed that a lot of the younger guys we get excited in Boston. It's like who's going to be the next this guy, who's going to be the next that guy, and you'll see a guy in Double A or like we watched a guy like Euclid way back or guys like Movan when they were in New Britain in Double A. We're like, wow, these guys are going to be so good, and then we've been trying to get a pitcher anybody. I think Lester was the last one that was decent they developed. Rodriguez is kind of getting there, but it's been really, 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 really tough to generate any good arms.
Had so many lower body injuries.
Right.
So many setbacks.
Do you see more injuries now because of the velocity, or is it about the same?
Yeah, without a doubt. I have to assume every time I see a player throwing 99, I'm just counting. I'm assuming he's going to blow out eventually. It's not. I mean, it's sad. I wish there would. I'm no expert on injury, but
right.
So many kids are just going max velo.
Yeah. Now, but like we were saying before, early on, it's control will get you to move up, but it seems like to make that next level to get out of Double A, that's what you're going to need though, and maybe they kind of overdo it, and that was
interesting. Got to do. I guess you got to do what you got to do, but
yeah.
If you're smooth in 95,
well, yeah, there's like 4 people or 5 people, that I know. I wish I was like that too.
Exactly.
But yeah, now how important are the tools like speed and fielding? Are they kind of an afterthought, or are they still paramount, or how important are those tools?
Fielding is very, very important because it lengthens your leash.
Right.
So you got a couple of pretty solid tools, but the hitting is behind. But you can really pick it.
Right.
You're gonna get a longer leash.
Now, is it depend on the position, or is it just universal?
Okay. Very much. Yeah, if you're up the middle, center field, shortstop, and you can pick it, you're going to be given you're going to get a much longer leash than you would. I mean, look at JBJ.
Right.
Mediocre kind of player, hitter, number 8 hole hitter, but, very, very valuable.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I mean, watching him play defense, it's, you got we got Fred Lynn comparables, you got all these other comparables, but and his arm is just, I mean, it is all these videos of him chucking the balls in the stands. It's amazing to watch, but it's the gaps between when he's hitting and when he's not hitting. Like when he's on fire, he looks amazing. And we'll go to a game and it's like, make sure you pick him up on the fantasy waiver wire because he's amazing. And then for about a week and a half, nobody can touch him. And then all of a sudden, it's gone.
He runs hot and cold like no one else, man.
And it's too bad because he's he does a lot of stuff in the community, but I mean they all got rabbit ears now. Everyone's hearing everything. And we'll go to the game and it's like, oh, I heard they said this or I heard they said that, or or whatever. But you know, is there guys now that you might have seen that were not good defensive players that became good defensive players, maybe that are playing professionally now? If anybody come to mind?
Devers.
Okay, yeah. Now he had a good arm, but it was not. He wasn't a good
Yeah, he
fielder.
always had the arm,
Right.
but you know, I mean, he always looked better than Chavis. But they were playing 2015 Greenville at the same time,
Right.
and they're rotating on third.
Uh-huh.
Devers always looked better than Chavis there, but
Okay.
I didn't think either looked all that like they had a long-term hold on the position.
Yeah, I mean, Chavis. I mean, I was in Chicago when he hit, I think, like 4 home runs in 5 days, something crazy. And
Yeah.
he's not a tall guy, so he's easy. He's relatable to people like me. Where it's like, wow, if that guy can do it, maybe I can do it, you know. But yeah. But he hits the ball so damn hard. But how much of an impact did the performance enhancing drugs have with him? Do you think? Because he seemed like he's passed tests and he's still able to hit the major league level. Was that just to bulk up? Do you think, or do you think it was really an impact on that year he had? Is it hard to say?
Oh, you mean Chavis?
Yeah.
I'm not really sure. He was always jacked. He was jacked.
Because he was always hurt, wasn't he? He never put up the numbers. And then once he was finally healthy, then he started to hit, right?
But he never really. The hit tool was always kind of behind.
Okay.
He always had extreme power.
Right.
When he first came to Greenville, he looked like he was trying to murder everything.
Okay.
He was trying to hit the ball 500 feet.
Right.
And he was jacked up because of all the soft away. He was just getting a steady diet of breaking balls.
Right.
Got $150. He eventually settled in.
Okay.
But that power is real, man.
Oh yeah, I mean we get there from batting practice. We get that if you get there 2 hours before the game, you can sit on the green monster at Fenway, and 4, 5, 6 over your head. I mean, yeah, I understand it's a wall. It looks impressive, because you're 310 feet away from home plate, but it's still 37 feet up there in the sky. But 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then he's pounds his chest and he gets over. It's pretty cool to watch batting practice.
Yeah. Now I mentioned hands earlier. That kid's got special hands.
And that allows him to wait longer.
Hands are almost Sheffield-like.
Really, that quick? Which he probably had the best hands I've ever seen.
He's lightning.
Yeah.
His hands are lightning. He just
now. What's the adjustment as far as, so he saw all the breaking balls? Was it somebody just pull him aside, say, hey, listen, this is how they're trying to pitch you, and he had to get through to his head, or?
It took a year and a half for him to not pull off everything and try to yak everything.
And then you look at another guy like that.
Second year back to Greenville, and he was more up the middle, letting the ball travel further.
Right. Yeah.
He was still having some difficulty picking up spin.
Okay.
But and that's just, I think, who he is.
Okay. And now you get a natural athlete like a hitter, a guy like Devers.
Yeah.
Kind of a butcher in the field, had a good arm, but hitting wise, wow.
First time I ever saw him, he hit a ball about 8. I was telling you earlier, about 8 feet off the ground. And you've been to Fenway 1,000 times, probably. Oh, yeah. So you know the triangle.
Oh yeah.
Greenville has the exact same setup.
Right. I've seen it on the internet.
And he hit a ball off the top of the fence in the triangle on a line as an 18-year-old. Never seen it before in my life. I don't think I've ever seen it at Fenway, and I've been 15 times.
Yeah, very, very rarely do young players, I saw Griffey play with his dad. That was pretty cool. His dad was in left and he was in center. But I've never seen a young guy perform like him. And I know when he first came up with the Red Sox, I think they played, it was the second year, they were playing Houston, and they were already out of it. They were down like 10-0, and he hit it inside the park home run. And almost exactly where you're talking about, where he hit that ball. And it was just so exciting to see a guy who came from the minor leagues, who wasn't a free agent, actually could produce and perform. Because it's been a while. I mean, the MO is, the rest of Major League Baseball is our minor leagues. We don't develop guys. That's almost how it seemed, recently.
Right.
So we talked about Devers. Is there any pitching guys that you've seen? I mean, they might not be on the Red Sox anymore, but guys that you saw that were in the minors with the Red Sox who are flourishing now, maybe even some minor league, maybe even some relievers, maybe?
Well, Kopech.
Okay.
Kopech
he threw almost over 100, right, I believe?
He was 95, 98 when I saw him in Greenville.
And then he blew his arm out, I think.
it wasn't consistent, but a wipeout slider when he was
Right.
on it.
Right.
And then he got suspended.
Right.
He tested positive for I think it was amphetamine or something.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, while he was out on his 50 games, he learned the changeup. So
Okay.
I think the whole thing helped him actually.
Oh, absolutely. Now, for guys like that, where the injuries seem to be pretty prevalent when they're younger, and then they sit down and they talk with guys. Do you think that, I don't say an injury would help them, but I think that if they're able to sit on the bench and watch the game, do you think that helps them at all a little bit? It seems like a lot of guys have benefited from that, where they've had some setbacks early in their career, and then they look at the game from a different point of view.
Yeah, I remember reading Chipper Jones, who broke
Right.
his last debut and had to sit out a year. It helped him a lot. I remember reading him saying that. But I'm sure it's case by case. Some
Right.
players just don't have the focus for to learn anything from it.
Yeah, what I notice is that a lot of the guys that I see, they dominate at the high school level, and or even in Cape Cod League, they're studs and they stand out. And then something happens, and I know the Red Sox have got a lot of criticism for drafting players like a guy like it was Jason Place or somebody, or some other guys that they were supposed to be really good and they didn't quite work out. What do you think the disconnect is or was, from I mean, not to throw you under the bus, but the scouting department? Like, why aren't the Red Sox getting more guys who are developing? Are they looking at different things? Were they looking at the wrong things, do you think? Or what was going on there?
It's a guessing game.
Yeah.
Less so with college players, I assume. I don't do anything with the amateurs.
Right.
But I mean, if you look at the international market, the Latin market, you're guessing on 14-year-olds.
Right.
If you're guessing, you're betting on high school kids. You're betting on 16, 17-year-olds.
Right.
You don't know how well they're going to pick up even a mediocre curveball.
Right.
In the minor leagues when they're facing college pitchers.
Yeah. Wow. I just get a kick out of it. It's always like, well, why? You look at well, I go to the ESPN, I'll see Keith Law, and it's like top 100 prospects. And the Red Sox have like a guy who's like 97 and like 104. And I'm like, wait, I understand, when you win a World Series, you're picking last and there's penalties for luxury tax. Yeah. But is there a guy now last year that maybe people don't know about that people should keep an eye on that you saw?
Yeah, I liked Tristan Costas a lot.
Oh yeah, I mean, we saw him. How long are his legs? He must have the biggest legs I've ever seen.
He's huge. He's 6'6", 240, 250.
Yeah, but it's like 6 feet his legs, right?
He's all legs.
Because he's got a crouch, I think, right?
Yeah. Fortunately, when I first saw him in April, he had a big crouch.
Okay.
And then when I came back in May, he was more upright, which I liked. Okay. When you crouch like that, it's really hard. It's really difficult to get big air.
Right. Well, I don't know if you remember. I'm dating myself now, but we had Phil Plantier on the Red Sox. He basically sat on the plate. He's a hitting instructor somewhere, I think, from minor league team, I think.
Yeah.
But I mean, he had a crazy crouch.
Costas does have that too. Does keep that crouch for 2 strikes.
And then he sits up.
Then he gets down in the crouch, Pete Rose style.
Oh wow. Now, is that do the coaches talk to these guys about approach, or do they kind of hands off until they move up?
He's a well-coached kid. He went to the academy down in Plantation, Florida. That's where
Brenton, Florida, or something. Yeah.
Yeah. What was it called?
IMG, maybe. Does that sound right?
It might be right.
It's one of those. I know there's a lot going on with that kid.
Anytime I see that, I know he had good coaching all the way through high school.
Right, but when you see that stance, I mean, he's going to be phenomenal. Like, you would never teach anybody to do that. He has to be such a phenomenal athlete to be able to hit like that.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah. But I read an interview, and his hero is Joey Votto, and he's starting out on the team after Joey Votto. That's a hell of a start, hell of a player to model.
So he'll lead the league in walks and.
Yeah. Yeah.
Now, when he was
power, that kid has 80 power. Close to
80, does he? Okay. when he was originally drafted, he was listed as a first baseman / third baseman, I believe. Is that right?
Yeah, they immediately moved into first.
Okay, and he's definitely going to play first.
Yeah.
And it's hard for people to guess, but we're trying to figure out how this all fits. So because you have Dahlbeck and you have Chavis, and then you have Tristan.
A lot of corners.
Yeah, how do you see those pieces fitting if you had to guess?
I just think they're all going to be placeholders until Casas is ready.
Okay.
Just my own take.
And like you think maybe one will be a DH and
power too.
Yeah.
He's a limited player.
You're talking about Dahlbeck?
Yeah. And
Yeah,
he's limited.
Is he like a Joey Gallo type of guy, or?
Yeah, from the right side, he doesn't walk nearly as much as Gallo does.
Right.
But he's got that kind of power.
Yeah. Now, could he hit 250 in the majors, or is that a stretch?
230 to 250, yeah.
Really? Okay, all right, yeah. Because I mean, we hear about the power.
Maybe it's a 10% walk rate instead of Gallo's 15.
Right.
So maybe that's the difference of 40 points in OBP.
Mm-hmm. And because of the 80 power, nobody ever thought of using Dahlbeck as a pitcher, right? Because I know he pitched in college as well, right?
I read some quotes from Dahlbeck. He actually hated the pitching.
Really?
He did it because his team needed it, but he had no interest in it. He would love to hit, prefers to hit.
Yeah.
So maybe if he fails, and if he stalls in AAA, can't make it, maybe he'll switch. But.
Right. Yeah. But now does he? I've heard that he has the best arm of him and Devers and all those guys.
I believe it.
Yeah. Now, as far as any other guys that you were talking about, we talked about Tristan. Is there any pitchers maybe to keep an eye on? Maybe guys that that we haven't heard about?
Well, I don't know. You probably heard of Brian Mata. I like him. I saw him in 2015 or 2017 Greenville.
Okay.
And what's interesting is I saw a control pitcher.
Okay.
He was hitting 92, 93.
Right.
With a curve and a change, and then he got up, injured his back.
Yeah.
And he had a hard time throwing anything for a strike in his following year. Last year he took off, but he's throwing high 90s now.
But the control kind of went down, right? Because of the velocity went up?
Yeah, the control went down, the effort level went up. So I'm curious to get a look, but some people see reliever now, right. And others are still pretty excited about him. So
the people that see reliever, do you think they look at as how to get to the major leagues the fastest? I know they talk about who's the guy there.
I think they're seeing long-term reliever.
There's another guy, relief pitcher, or he's a starter now, but he goes back and forth.
I know who you're talking about.
His name escapes me right now. Oh man, he was in Pawtucket for a little bit. He came up.
Innerhalf?
Yeah. They look at because of his windup. They said he can't get lefties out because he throws the 3/4.
Yeah, it's actually the low 3/4. It's almost sidearm. I understand.
Okay. Now, have you seen him pitch or?
He's one of those advanced college lefties that jumped over my level.
Okay. all right then. But I know we saw him a lot on television. I think he was in the College World Series on a couple teams, or at least one team. But now, for someone like me, I'm like, oh well, can he just work on getting left-handed hitters out better? What is the issue with his delivery? That is it the arm angle, the left, you see the ball so much better?
Exactly. When you lower your arm slot, you almost come in sidearm. Lefties are going to give you fits.
Okay.
They see the ball so well. When he was went in his first full year, he went to High A Salem.
Right.
Red Sox tried moving his arm slot up and making him more of a conventional starting pitcher.
Okay.
And he struggled mightily, so they gave up on the idea.
Now, because they saw him more as a starter and they wanted him to be a starter, was that the idea?
They wanted him to, if you can get him to throw at a higher slot, so he
Right.
can more consistently get lefties out, and he can turn a lineup over 3 times.
Right.
So then he's more useful as a starter. Although today relievers are pretty valuable.
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, it's if you got a good bullpen, you don't need as good starting pitching, which is kind of funny to say, but you can kind of shorten that game. I mean, I don't know if you can do it for a full season, but in the playoffs, if you get a couple of guys you can throw hard, you can kind of, you can Mickey Mouse, you can do some things there. So
definitely.
Something else I want to ask you about too. The Red Sox drafted a guy, Noah Song, and he was in the Naval Academy. and trying to get information about how that all works. And so he fell in the draft, I guess, because he had the commitment to the Navy, and he pitched at Lowell for a little bit, and then some other World Junior Championship or something as a relief pitcher. Supposedly he was dominant. Do you see guys a lot of the time that maybe have these commitments and come back and are older, or mostly just younger guys at your league pretty much? Would they go to your league if they were out of baseball for a couple of years? How would that work?
I don't have a lot of experience with this, honestly. I can't think of a single case. I'm excited.
Yeah.
The system. I wish he were somehow managed to get a waiver, but it doesn't sound promising at this point.
I guess when they passed the law, he didn't quite. They passed it after he had already graduated, so he didn't qualify. He still could have got one, and I think if they kind of pushed the button politically, he might have been able to. But I think so. What I hear now is he has to wait at least 2 years, and then I don't know what happens after that. I don't know if then they appeal and it still might not go through.
I think the commitment is 2 years.
Okay.
So he's already 22. So
Right.
he'll be 24 when he graduates. He's not coming to me. He's coming to probably go to the high minors as a reliever.
Uh-huh.
And try to, if he comes down to build innings and he'll be 27 before he's ready.
Oh wow.
Yeah. So it takes 3-4 years to get that arm up. You want to build to 170, 180 innings.
Uh-huh.
And polish the repertoire and everything. But he's just going to be a fastball slider guy.
Okay.
Coming out of the pen, most likely.
Right.
Which is the reason he fell to the 4th round. Everybody thought he had a first-round arm.
Okay.
But,
now,
if a waiver would have been a home run.
Oh, absolutely, yeah. I mean, we were like, oh, well, you got him and you got Mata, and there's that other guy there, the left-handed pitcher. What's his name there? Yeah, you've seen him a couple times, or was he hurt and you didn't get to see him? What was the story there?
Yeah, Groom I thought was my favorite pitcher at the level in 2018 or 2017. I guess it might have been 2017. I saw a start late in the year that I thought was really, really well done.
Okay, great curveball, right? That's his pitch.
Standing curveball, and he was also sitting low to mid 90s.
Oh wow!
And threw a very above average changeup and was throwing strikes. And then the next day I read an interview on him, and I just thought he was going to be really starting to come into himself, come into his own. He spent the off season working his tail off.
You worked out with Chris Sale, I heard.
Worked with Chris Sale.
Yeah.
He came in, lost like 20, 30 pounds, tightened up, and he was ready to take off, and he blew out his arm.
Go ahead. Which is common. Now he's healthy now.
He came back late in 19, and he looked really, really good. So
okay, yeah, I think he pitched.
That's what I read. I read 4 or 5 reports. Everybody was really happy with what they saw. So
yeah, he pitched in, I think, in the playoffs for Lowell, I think.
Yeah.
Now, so if now we don't know what's happening with minor league baseball, probably won't happen. I don't know. But now, if minor league baseball was happening and there was no coronavirus, where would he be now? What level would he be at now?
I was expecting him in Greenville to start the year.
Okay, all right.
Because you got to start at the bottom if you have no innings.
Right.
And throw 110, 120. Next year you try to get up to 140, 150, and then you're kind of getting into the neighborhood of a starter.
Right. So they really want to see you throw at least 150 to 175 innings before they'll let you go up to the big leagues, huh?
It's case by case, but yeah, I think that's the case for most people.
Now, I mean, you're a little older than I am, but I mean, do you look at it how is like that's the new normal, and now you'll never see a 30-game winner ever again.
No.
You probably won't see a 300-game winner again.
No.
You might see a 3,000 strikeout guys the way they're swinging the bats.
That's for sure.
But a lot of milestones you're going to have to readjust if you're going to look at these guys for Hall of Fame credentials, because they're just guys. By the time a guy gets in the major leagues, if he played college baseball, they come out as sophomores typically if they're really good, depending on who they are. It's going to take you forever. I mean, to get 300 wins, you do the math. No one's going to play 20 years. It's just not going to happen anymore. No, not at all. I actually, the win stat doesn't really. I mean, I used to be all up with 20 wins and things, but it just doesn't say anything anymore. It never did. But I caught on to the idea that pitcher pitches
one hitter gives up one hit or one run and loses, and he gets a loss. Another guy gives up 5 runs and 9 hits and went 5 innings and gets a win. It just eventually it just stopped meaning anything for me. But you're right. I mean, milestones to your larger point, milestones are changing for sure.
It looked like nobody steals bases anymore, hardly at all.
No, that's for sure. So
is that just a percentage thing because the risk versus reward?
What would Ricky Henderson's claim to fame be right now?
I'd still take him on my team. He was not that bad. I love watching him play because it was just like, and he was just a ripped athlete too. Oh man.
He was the one Yankee I had a hard time hating.
Yeah, he's he was quite a guy. I like the story where he's talking about John Olerud, and he doesn't realize that he's talking to John Olerud. I played with a guy who had a helmet, who played first base. Maybe you know him. And he's like, yeah, that was me. I was on the team with you. And Ricky just didn't even know. He was like, oh, really? Like he was so oblivious to the fact that it was the same guy. He thought there must be another guy like that in Major League Baseball.
No.
I thought that was kind of a crazy story. Just like, okay. But, and then I think that the A's named the A's Park after Ricky Henderson or something this year. I mean, they were doing crazy stuff with like the naming rights.
Nice.
But, just crazy stuff like that. Another thing I want to get into, we talked about how there might be some contraction within minor league baseball. I know you have some background on that. What is that going to do for the minor leagues? I mean, is it going to annihilate it? Is it going to, you guys will survive somehow? Or what's the long term? What does that look like long term for minor league baseball?
Well, it's kind of tricky long term, but initially they're coming after, they want to contract 42 teams.
Mm-hmm.
So all of your short season teams are either going to get contracted or reallocated as a full season team.
Okay.
And they're also doing geographical was a big concern to cut down on travel.
Right.
So they're making the league smaller and more spread out, or less spread out.
Okay.
So, like for instance, my Sally League, my South Atlantic League,
right,
had 14 teams in it. It's going to be trimmed to 6.
Wow.
And there's going to be, this is all speculation.
Yeah.
I want to say it's speculation, but minor league balls are the minor league owners seem to be on board, so maybe it's not so speculative now.
Yep.
But there's initially there was talk about there being a mid-Atlantic league.
Okay.
So, which would cut down on travel. That
Sure.
would be like Jersey down to Maryland.
Okay.
DC, maybe Virginia.
Right. Bethesda or something, yeah.
Yeah. So my league is going to get cut in half in the Mid-Atlantic, half in the South Atlantic, and the Appy is going to go away. So for me personally, it's going to have a big effect.
Oh, they're going to get rid of the Appalachian League completely?
Appalachian League, all but one are going away. The one's going to be probably the Mid-Atlantic League.
Wow. That's unfortunate because I think that we always talk about, I know in New England, about how expensive everything is. And then when we go to the Midwest, we're like, wow, things are so cheap. Where a lot of these towns, you can go to a game for short money. And when you get rid of those parks, you're kind of, you're doing away with fans. And, baseball is tough now for a kid to sit through. If you really like baseball, that's great. But, people at the high school level will lose kids in lacrosse. So they like the upbeat sports, a lot more going on. And, to contract, I hate to say it, but it really just comes down to money, right? It's a money thing. It's got to be.
I want to say yes, but it's not entirely that.
Okay.
There's so much new available tech now, that with
like StatCast and things like that.
StatCast, and also the wearables.
Yep.
These players, I think these teams are picking up elite talent quicker.
Okay.
So maybe there's not that these kids don't have to play 800 games or 400, 500 games in minor leagues to determine that they have the talent.
Sure.
So maybe they're learning it quicker, and their ascension to the majors is going to be quicker, and maybe they'll make less mistakes with draftees and signees.
Right.
So maybe on one hand, the owners are going to always choose to spend less.
Right.
But at the same time, maybe there's some validity to the idea that maybe they don't need 5 levels of minor leaguers anymore. And they're signing a lot of kids that aren't going to have any future.
Right. That's kind of sad, but something I know this year, there's only 5 rounds to the MLB draft this year. What is that going to mean for teams?
Some say 10. Either way, it's not 40.
Right. So is there going to be an unlimited amount of minor league free agents signed? Like, what's going to happen?
I think part of the this kind of goes hand in hand with the contraction.
Right.
Teams, less slots to fill less slots for these players to fill.
Uh-huh.
So less draftees. I think there's going to be some minor league free agents. I think there's going to be a lot. There's independent ball. Independent ball is going to be a lot more talented.
Okay.
And then they're just going to get plucked that way.
Do you see this as the new normal, or is this just this 1 year because of everything going? You do really? Okay.
I don't think we're going back to the days of 40 rounds or 5 levels of minor leagues. I thought 2020 was going to be the last hurrah for a lot of this, but it just didn't work out.
Yeah.
With Corona.
Yeah. Now, would you say, obviously Corona has a big impact on it, but since you've got involved to now, has the league you cover or just baseball in general, has it changed a lot, or is it similar to when you first started? It seems like it's night and day compared to when you first started.
When I first started was 2015, so it hasn't changed a ton.
Well, in 3 years, I mean, you get 5 rounds. You got, teams disappearing. There's a lot going on in 3 years. That's a short amount of time.
That's absolutely true. Yeah. In that respect, absolutely.
Right.
But the thing is, 15 to 19, there really wasn't any change at all. But now it all seems to be coming, and it's all it's all on the horizon. And I don't think the cat's going to get back in the bag. That's not a very good.
Now, what's the general attitude from colleagues of yours? How do they? What's their interpretation or perception of it? Are they disappointed? Are they depressed maybe at it? Or they wish things were how they used to be? Like, what kind of feedback do you get?
I think we're all kind of shell shocked, and I think everybody's in agreement it's here to stay,
right.
And it's just what it is. So adapt, or I think right now we're all looking for things to talk about, looking for things to write about.
Right. How in the Northeast, we're kind of in our own little world, and we're arrogant, and we're wearing our mask only if we see a cop nearby. But what are things like where you? Is it a lot different? What's day-to-day life like for you guys right now?
Yeah, I've got an adrenal insufficiency,
Okay.
So I've got to be careful.
Oh wow.
I'm still working. I'm baking at supermarkets, so I've been working all the way through this.
You're an essential worker, yeah.
Yeah, I'm wearing my mask and washing my hands 35 times a shift and things of that nature.
Has there been any precaution, any news about anything getting lifted where you are? They're talking about May 17th where we are right now.
Yeah. I just got a text from my boss this morning. We're going back to normal hours.
Okay, and then are people excited about that, or are they apprehensive about it, or?
Probably a mixed bag. I've been pretty isolated. Even when I work, I'm pretty much by myself. So.
Okay.
Mostly isolated. I assume there's some paranoia, and there's some happy to get out of the house people.
Oh yeah. I got 2 young kids, and I'm lucky where they're here quite a bit, but my in-laws and my parents help us out. But I know people who don't have that type of luxury, and they're losing their minds.
Have you been able to keep your job through all this?
Yeah, I part of the job that allows me to do this is I work for a public access station, and we actually encourage to do interviews like this on Zoom, and for programming on our channel. And it's the kind of thing where I cover the sporting events in the high school for the town: football, baseball, basketball. I work with the high school kids where we're closed, but we're salary, so at least we're getting a paycheck. But it's very weird not covering high school sports. And a lot of the kids, scholarship-wise, there's a lot of stuff going on. Award seasons aren't going on. Graduation we're not going to have. There's a lot of challenging things that are happening right now at the high school. So it's definitely not normal.
That's pretty good. So what are you doing to fill your day?
I do stuff like this. and then looking for any sports I can possibly find to watch. It's very slim pickings. I've been watching a lot of the older stuff that I had on DVR. And then my friends and I, we also do another show similar to this, and we've been watching that Last Dance, the Chicago Bulls documentary. I hope you get a chance to see that. That's been a lot of fun to watch.
Yeah, I've been assembling a TV stand, rearranging the living room, watching new car videos because I'm gonna have to buy soon.
Oh yeah, what are you looking to buy?
Probably either Mazda 3 or a Mazda CX-30. Probably.
There you go. There you go. Now, with what you do, you're driving a lot. I imagine miles is something you got to keep an eye on.
Not really at all. I walk to work. So.
Oh, there you go. Not much worse than that.
Nah, that's awesome.
Well, I want to thank you for joining us, John. If people want to get a hold of you, you said there was some couple websites, your Twitter, and then maybe just rattle off a couple of the websites you work for. If people want to follow your work, where should they look for you?
Definitely, thanks. I'm on Twitter as Salnos, capital S, capital A, capital L, capital N, OTES. And then I have a website called Notes from the Sally.
Mm-hmm.
That's where my home was for a long time. I still have it operational, but most of all my scouting notes going forward will be at Prospects 365. It's a very popular website.
And at some point, we hope to see something.
Yeah, no doubt about it. It might be 2021, unfortunately.
Now, is stuff on their archive? Can we look at older things that you've posted?
Oh yeah, Notes from the Sally, and actually still doing my previews. It pays to procrastinate. I have a couple articles still to write.
Oh wow, okay.
So, but yeah, right through 2015, there's a ton of scouting reports, minor league scouting reports for rookie level and single A.
Right.
If you look back to 2019, you get a pretty good idea on some kids 2-3 years away at this point.
Right.
What's
the success rate as far as what you see and then what happens? 50%, 25%, 100%?
Probably 20%. I'd say 30, maybe 30 makes it. 10 to 15, 10 to 15 stick.
Yeah.
And 5 probably excel. You know. Look at the 2015 Greenville Drive, the low A Red Sox.
Right.
We had Devers, Moncada, Kopech.
Yep.
Devers, Moncada, Kopech, Chavis, Benintendi.
Yep. Some good guys.
The team of the decade.
Oh, absolutely, yeah. That must have been a fun team to cover.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I was there every weekend.
Well, I want to thank you again for joining us. I got to get going, but we'll definitely relay your information across the screen there if anyone wants to get a hold of you. And thanks again for joining us, John.
Thanks, Brian. Pleasure.